I'm sitting here at the laundromat by myself, and I figured I'd go ahead and make this video that I've been wanting to make for some time now. Some of you are going to ask, what does this have to deal with survival? Well, I want to go ahead and mention that I also have a religion degree. And so to me, some of these theological things are pretty important. And when it comes to survival, I want to make sure that I don't get led astray into some kind of group that teaches lies, falsities, things like that. I am a Christian. I happen to believe the Bible is true. I am a young earth creationist. And on the theological spectrum, I have some beliefs on the Wesleyan side, and I have some beliefs on the Calvinist side. So I try to look for unbiased sources. And something I've noticed with Bible translations is they don't always all say the same thing. Now, this is important because if you are somebody who is a Christian, or if you come across somebody who says they're a Christian, you want to make sure that you have the correct Christology, and you want to make sure that they have the correct Christology, and you want to make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row and all your facts straight and things like that. In times of dire need, in emergencies, and survival situations, sometimes people get what's called prison religion. They will act like they care about God and act like they love God, and they'll seem like they're interested, but really they just, they need a crutch, okay? Which is odd because they will any other time say that somebody who's a Christian needs a crutch. None of us can make it to heaven by our own merit. We all need God, okay? So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and show you something here and explain myself a little more. There are several passages in the Bible where different Bible versions or translations say things differently. And I have a few here. And there's also different study Bibles out there you want to watch out for. So Genesis 1:1. If you get a study Bible, you want to read the study notes. Some of them will teach you that there's a gap between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2, and that gap was millions of years. That theory is false. That's called the gap theory, okay? If you have a Bible that teaches the gap theory, you should probably get rid of that. And here's why. The Old Testament in Genesis was originally written in Hebrew, and the very language, the syntax of the Hebrew text makes it where there can't be a gap between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2. It would violate the language rules. Okay, one of the Bibles that teaches the gap theory is the Scofield Bible. The Scofield Bible the notes were compiled together originally by this guy named Scofield. He might have had a team, but Scofield was a Freemason, and I think he also abandoned his family to work on the project, and his notes are not always the most accurate. He's really wasn't that great of a guy, if you ask me. So watch out for the Scofield Bible. The NRSV, if I remember correctly, it'll say like there was a wind from God instead of the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And I think even Catholic Bibles will say a wind from God versus the Spirit of God. So you have to watch out for that. In Isaiah 7:14, the New Revised Standard Version reads young girl instead of virgin. So this is a verse that talks about the virgin birth of Jesus, and it's being foretold in Isaiah. But what the NRSV seems to do is kind of try to get rid of that by saying young girl. Granted, some people will say that in Hebrew, young girl means virgin, but we're looking at English here, and not everyone knows that, and other reputable Bible versions use the word virgin. Isaiah 51:9 is another one. The God's Word translation says serpent. The New American Standard Bible says dragon, and the King James Version says dragon. There are kind of like arguments amongst different translations as to where to use the word dragon in the Old Testament, and I believe that's based upon the Hebrew word tanian. So you can look that up if you want to. Here's another passage, 43:20 in Isaiah. Wild animals, jackals, and ostriches will honor me. That's the God's Word translation. NASB also says jackals and ostriches. The King James Version says the beasts of the field shall honor me, the dragons and the owls. Now what's cool about the King James Version of the Bible is that came out in 1611. And this is before we had the theory of evolution. So Bibles that came out after about 1850, sometimes those scholars are trying to match the timetable of evolution with what the Bible teaches, and they're really not compatible if you ask me. Just so you know, I'm not making this stuff up here. I've gone ahead and turned Bibles to this passage here, Isaiah 43:20. So if we look over here, this is the Holman Christian Standard Bible, Isaiah 43, verse 20. Here you go. The animals of the field will honor me, jackals and ostriches, because I provide water in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. Coming over here to the New American Standard Bible, the beasts of the field will glorify me, the jackals and the ostriches, because I have given waters in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. Okay. Then when we go to the King James, I went ahead and bookmarked it. Okay, Isaiah 43, verse 20. The beasts of the field shall honor me, the dragons and the owls, because I give waters in the wilderness and rivers in the desert to give drink to my people, my chosen. See, before the theory of evolution came out, people used the word dragon. The word dinosaur did not exist. The word dinosaur didn't come around until, I believe it was like the mid-1800s, maybe a little earlier or maybe a little later, and it meant terrible lizard. Well, if you don't have the word dinosaur and you see a dinosaur, what are you going to call it? Probably a dragon. There are cave paintings out west here in America where the Native Americans drew pictures of these brontosaurus-like creatures. There are dragons and leviathans on artwork, even flags of countries. Different countries, different people of antiquity drew those things or sculpted those things. So I do think that humanity saw dragons. Okay, Mark 16:9-10. The NASB places it in brackets. The God's Word translation does not bracket, but it has a footnote, and the KJV does not bracket or footnote that. What happens is not every Bible is translated from the same set of scrolls. All right, and what happens with that is you have one group of people who, when they got the scrolls and everything, they maybe didn't like something, so they added to it or took things away. And then the people who got the King James, which I believe came from the received text, the Textus Recipitus, something along the lines of that, they were committed to preserving exactly what the scrolls said. And they don't bracket this portion of the scripture here. Now, some people will say it's not as old, therefore it's not as accurate. That's not always the truth. Okay, that's like saying I have two scholars here. The older one is accurate just because he's older. Well, that older scholar could be completely wrong. All right, same thing with the text. I find the King James Version is the most accurate, the most truthful one, but the problem lies in the fact that we don't speak Elizabethan era English anymore, and that can also lead to people getting led astray, because people can say, hey, I know it says this, but this is what it means, so you got to study. Here's another example down here, Revelation 6:8. King James Version says pale horse, NASB reads ashen horse. New Revised Standard Version and the Holman Christian Standard Bible say pale green horse. If you're talking to me about an ashen horse, I might think it's an ash color. I don't think ash is necessarily pale green. So there you go, you got to do some research. What I like to do that kind of solves some of these problems is I like to get a good, trustworthy study Bible that has good notes, and then I make notes in here if I find something that I think is debatable. So what I'll do is I'll get a text that's easy to read, like I really like this Holman. They have a new version of this. It's just called the Christian Standard Bible, but the Holman Christian Standard Bible I found to be excellent because it has a lot of footnotes over things that people might debate. So they're not trying to lie to you in here. There's not really as much of a agenda going on. So I have Holman. I have a New American Standard Bible. I like them both. I trust the Holman more. And then I double check everything with my King James. Now, what it will also help you is if you have a dictionary from that era too. That'll help you identify some of the terms. So anyways, I just want to make this video, let you know not all Bibles say the same thing. In times of dire need, survival situations, things like that, you'll get some people that will they'll use prison religion, or they'll try to use God to gain control, for corrupt means. You need to know the truth. You need to know how to rightly handle the truth. And that's why I made this video. I want you to survive and have accurate knowledge. All right, thanks for tuning in. Semper Fi, and God bless.